is the Unemployed and Successful podcast, where I'm showing you exactly what to do to build a personal brand so strong you never have to work for anybody ever again. I'm your host, Lissa Scott, personal branding queen, American vagabond, artist, dreamer, designer, and visionary. If you're wanting your life to be your prayer and you know that you're here to do more than just pay bills and die, you found yourself to the right spot. Let's rip on life, baby.
Hey guys, and welcome back to episode 2 of Built Not Busy. Today we're going to be talking about, hey, I'm not broke, I'm just building. And before we jump in today, this episode is sponsored by my friend Jess. She has a program called The Art and Skill of Coaching, and as the name might suggest, she provides a training for coaches who want to become great at the art and the skill of coaching. She has taken hundreds of people through this program. She has a background in therapy. She is a highly qualified, walk the walk type of individual who is absolutely crushing it and has been for, honestly, a decade at this point. A lot of coaches are really good at like their area in which they coach. They're great at nutrition, or they're great at the actual thing that they teach, but then their coaching skill is lagging behind, and it makes their work with their clients less effective than it could be. And so if you are like, yeah, I need to get better at actually being a coach, and like, how do I get people through mental hurdles? How do I get them to make change in their life? That is going to be a great program for you. So everything will be linked up in the show notes. Check it out if that sounds like something that you want to explore. Jess is awesome. She also has a podcast, so if you want to kind of get a taste of what's going on in her world, I'll link everything up for you below. Today, I want to talk through the difference between I'm broke and I'm building. And this is one of those things that I see a lot, is when people start their business, they put all this pressure on themselves to like be cash flow positive right away. And in the online space, you can be cash flow positive your first month. Yes, you can. Traditional business, that's not necessarily the case, right? And so I think we need to kind of remove that expectation that we need to be cash flow positive every single month forever just because you're an online business owner, and take a look at how brick and mortar operates, right? It is not always going to be a cash flow month every single month. Now, that being said, when you are between cash flow or when you are broke, two entirely different things. And it's easy to, when you are between cash flow, you're building a new offer, you're serving existing clients, you are pivoting from one thing to another. It's really easy to be like, oh my gosh, and freak out and psych yourself out. The income's quiet and your thoughts get really loud. I don't want you to live there. I have pivoted so many times, and every single time it's like, let me pull back for 2 or 3 months. I might be more in like a maintaining cash flow state rather than a huge growth state, but every single time big growth has followed, every single time, you guys. And it has been so many pivots over the years. So today, this episode, I want to speak into that chapter where you might be between things, or you might be gearing up to launch the next thing. You're not broke. You're building. And there is such a huge difference. So let's separate cash flow from capacity first. Cash flow is what's currently coming in, and it is often temporary. As you know, sometimes people will pay in full. You'll have, like, oh my gosh, cash flow is doing so good. It's important not to put your identity there. Yes, business needs to be profitable. Otherwise, we just have an expensive hobby. Absolutely. We need to be cash flow aware. What I'm asking is that you don't define your worth based on a number that is literally going to change next month. What I want you to focus on is your actual capacity, which includes things like your skills. You have full control over how proficient and efficient, like we talked about last week, am I at my thing, and how can I continually get better? It includes things like your work ethic. How willing are you to get up and set that alarm and put the work in and do that day after day after day after day, which brings me to the next thing, which is your attitude. What are you doing in your life to keep yourself mentally strong, mentally clear, positive, if you will? I don't even want to use that word, but how is your tenacity remaining intact? How are you making sure that what you're doing is actually something you want to be doing? Alignment and attitude are part of capacity. I also want to talk about discipline here. Where in your life can you apply more discipline to create more freedom? And last but not least, your sales ability. And I touched on this last week as well, but if your work is great and your ability to sell it is not, you are going to have a really hard time getting buy-in from people. So in this season where you're building, you're not broke, I don't want you focused on cash flow. I want you to be focused on capacity. This is the capacity exercise, entrepreneurship, life, etc. How can you expand your capacity to hold more, do more, show up more, be more efficient, and make things smoother, right? Slow, smooth, and smooth is fast. How do we apply this to our habits, our discipline, our sales, and our attitude and our skills so that we actually become more capable beings in the process? And that is what creates more cash flow, not, oh my gosh, I was in the right place at the right time and I just like made money come out of thin air because my one post went viral. I don't want you thinking about cash flow like that. I want you thinking about it as a direct reflection of your capacity. People tend to confuse the two. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing good in business because the money's not there. And they panic and they create all types of confusion and all types of distraction of like, maybe I should try this or maybe I should go after this. Maybe you should focus on your capacity. So if you know any amount of my story, you probably recall the era in which I had not one, not two, but 7 side hustles and actually no main gig. There was a point where I pulled that plug on corporate and I was like, okay, what do I want to do? I'm going to figure it out. We're going to get there. And in that season, that very scrappy, frustrating, I don't know what the heck I'm doing and people keep asking me season, I had to really focus on what qualities and skills can I develop in myself? How am I building my discipline muscle? And what are these experiences showing me is either it or not it? It was like playing process of elimination in my life. What do I like? What's draining to me? What comes naturally to me? What doesn't feel like work? Those were all the types of questions I was asking myself in that season. Out of my side gigs, waitressing and coaching became my 2 main gigs, and they also became the 2 areas in which my hour was worth at least $50, even when I was personal training or even when I was waitressing. And that taught me a lot because my hour used to be worth $18. I was like, oh my gosh, this is like 2 hours of work at once. Again, going back to that mindset of how do I create the same amount of money in half the amount of time? If you're wired for freedom, for travel, for a family, you're probably going to want to start to think like that. That season of life really taught me like, hey, I can learn on someone else's dime. So instead of paying to learn a skill, I can work and learn a skill while getting paid to learn it. The frequency of abundance is the same frequency as that of massive action. And this was something that was a big download for me actually. Just this year, I finally found the language for it, but it was like, oh, when you just keep moving, like money loves movement. Said another way, motion is lotion, as people like to say, but it's like staying in activity, staying in conversation, staying in skill development, staying in staying power and discipline. Those things are things that are eventually going to make you money. You're in the right room, you know the right people, you have the right skill set, and those things collide. The power of proximity meets the preparation, and we call it luck, right? No season is wasted when you are learning and you know why you are where you are, and you know the purpose of being there, and you know, even if you don't know the exact details, you know God has me here for a reason. I'm supposed to be treating this as a learning opportunity, a healing opportunity, a serving opportunity, and you know that good is coming from it. You can actually proclaim that over your life. You can pray in the morning. You can say, God, allow me to learn something today that benefits my long-term purpose. God, help me see the purpose in this thing. God, help me see who needs love today, who needs a listening ear, etc. What I'm not saying is hustle, 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 and just do as much as you can. What I'm saying is know why you're doing what you're doing, or at least have a hunch and follow that hunch and continue to build your capacity and capability as a human. And one thing to understand if you are finding yourself in a building season is that this is a season. It ends, right? And so you are not going to be this way forever. It is a temporary thing. If you are in a spot where you like need to have a part-time job while you grow your business, not a sign of failure, actually a sign of awareness and not living on a pipe dream of like, oh yeah, I'm just going to make like 10K months right away. No, I'd rather see you take the part-time job, have the financial stability and your 4 walls covered so that you can actually be in a creative state, so that you can actually innovate, so that you can actually dream. This is an iterative process. Not having money also makes your priorities crystal clear because you're really going to start to see the power of your time, of, well, I could be using this time differently where I could create money, or I could create business, or I could create passion in my life. And you're also going to see where you're spending money that it wasn't giving you an ROI. So I actually love this season of purification and a reassessment of values. And it's very hard to create when you're in survival mode. So getting out of that, even if it means taking a part-time job, that's the move. As I encourage you to do that, I want to give you 3 warnings. Number 1, say no to the work that is not a hell yes. If it is not a hell yes, it is going to be draining later. So if it's something that you're going to say yes to now for quick cash, but ultimately it drains your long-term capacity, we need to really weigh, I'm making X amount of money at what cost? You can take misaligned work all day because you're scared or you're fearful. And ultimately, I need you to find something that could be a part-time job that's like double purposed. It's helping you pay the bills now, and it's teaching you a skill that will translate later. That way, it can be an indirect hell yes instead of an, yeah, it's just something I do, where you have to completely close down, cut off, and compartmentalize these different parts in your personality, which is completely unnecessary. I think there's a lot of confusing urgency with importance that happens where we're like, oh my gosh, I gotta do this right now, so it must be important. And it's like, it could be urgent and actually not important at the same time, which is so interesting to think about. So don't think that just because something is noisy or someone's telling you how great of an opportunity is, that it's the right opportunity for you. This is a really solid time to practice discernment and say, okay, what gifts do I have? Is it helping me develop those? Is it helping me develop discipline? Is it helping me meet people? Is it helping me build a skill? If no, it's probably a no. Just because skill building, discipline building, sales skill building, and I say that one on its own because it's kind of its own thing. Like skill building is like your craft, sales and marketing is like a whole nother section, right? Relationships, time management, discipline. Just because it is not producing direct cash flow does not mean that it is unimportant. Just because it's not producing revenue yet does not mean that it is imaginary or irrelevant. It might make it more relevant. There's a quote that says, if you teach a woman sales, she'll never be broke again. And sales was really one of those things over the years that provided stability even when I was in a pivot. It was like, well, I know how to sell or I know how to market, so therefore I will be okay. And those are 2 of the greatest skills that you could develop that would actually change your personality. When you learn sales and marketing, you're going to have a different confidence about you. You're going to have a different peace about you. You're going to have a different resourcefulness about you. You're going to have a different curiosity about you. And I am so glad that I poured into myself in those ways and learned those things, because it helped me have agency over my life in seasons where otherwise I might have floundered, panicked, outsourced my joy, said, you know what, I'm just going to get the job. No, it was like, I can always sell, or I can always sell someone else's thing, what have you, right? It is such a skill set that is like a lifeboat, that if you can attach a solid sales strategy and marketing strategy to anything that you or one of your friends wants to do, there will always be a way to solve somebody's problem and get compensated for it. And it is one of the greatest gifts in my life. So we will end with this. You can be building and still need money. You can be scrappy and still be intentional. You can be building an empire and still need or want to take on part-time work. You would be lying to yourself if you weren't moving forward in these non-tangible ways and saying, my dream's going to work, my dream's going to work, my dream's going to work, off of pure delusion, pure faith, without saying, I have the humility to sharpen myself as a human being and become more useful in my relationships, in my skills, in my discipline, in my networking abilities, in my craft, all of these things, right? You are building, you are not broke. And if you're doing these things already, just know that you are on the right track. I will see you guys next week for part 3. Do the internet things. If you like this, give it a like, subscribe, follow, review, whatever. If you didn't, my name is not Lissa Scott, and I don't know whose podcast you just listened to. Okay? Love you guys.